Welcome to the Read Your Keys podcast. I am your host, Joel Lopez. If you're enjoying the content, please like, squish, smash, pulverize those like and follow buttons. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Today I have another returning guest, my friend Mrs. Leila Tomasone. You can find her on Twitter at limitlessleila and limitlessleila.car.co. Leila, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and Leila is blissfully remarried at 40 and will help you find the one and get treated right.
Yes.
Who doesn't want to get treated right, Leila?
Yes. That's what we do here.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Some people actually don't want to be treated right. Is that the case? You in your coaching, you would think like, hey, who doesn't want to be treated right? But there are people who, I don't know if they don't feel like they deserve it.
Yeah. A lot of that dysfunction comes in every color and stripe, and yeah, and we teach people, how to treat us. And so it's like, if you're signing up for it, can you really say you don't want it? I mean,
Yeah,
that's what you're there for.
That's funny though, but like I think it's one of those things, right? So people say they want a certain thing, but then they actually don't do the things or don't think that they're worth. I think self-worth is underappreciated, I guess is the way to say it. Like,
yeah,
of course huge. Of course I want to be treated right, but then it's like people don't treat themselves right, and then people take the cues from you, how you treat yourself, and they'll treat you accordingly.
Right. Yeah, and not only are we always teaching other people how to treat us, but we're also teaching ourselves constantly. And if your brain is hearing your inner dialogue say, call yourself names and, kick yourself every time you make a decision, and then that's what you're teaching yourself, that you're not worthy. If you're constantly like setting goals or resolutions, or like, I should get to the gym or whatever, and then you don't do it, you've just taught your brain that you weren't worthy of that you didn't deserve it.
Well, that's really interesting, is the self talk, because I mean you deal a lot with the dating and stuff like that, right? And the self talk, I think is huge, in all applications, but really that self talk that people will not like, I will not say, just for instance, for you, I would not talk to you the way that I would talk to myself, and it's just like, well, I'm supposed to be good to myself and love myself. But I would talk to you a certain way, but then if I make the slightest mistake, hey, you're dumb, or why do you do that thing? It's like, wow, that, like, you would never tolerate that stuff. And then as a parent, you would not tolerate that for your kids, for them to talk about themselves that way. But somehow for us, like, we think it's okay. Is a lot of what you do trying to work with people to, hey, let's fix the way you talk to yourself, because you're pretty mean to yourself. I mean, I think that's probably the best way. Like, people are really mean to themselves.
Definitely, it's true. And yeah, thinking about how you want your kids to talk to themselves, and what kind of pattern and example you want to set for them. I mean, that was my huge wake up call for the kind of relationship that I needed to be in, was what they were going to be seeing. Because my background, that I had a bad first marriage and was divorced, and then had even bad relationships after the divorce. And then, just realizing what waking up to what my kids were going to see is they're going to sign up for the same kinds of relationships that I did, unless I changed the pattern. And so that really drove me forward to change the example I was setting, and what I was saying to myself, how I was treating myself. Because it's, we can stick our head in the sand and be like, I always would see this, like, oh, I don't know why my daughter doesn't like the way she looks, or thinks she's fat. I tell her all the time she's not fat. But then you sit there and stand in the mirror and tell yourself you're fat, and say, I don't like the way that I look. That's what they're going to emulate. Not what you tell them to do. Like, do as I say, not as I do. Like, that does not work. And so yeah. And then, it is important to have kind self-talk. But in my experience, that's harder to start with, then I mean, you can put up affirmations, the words you say, that's programming. Like you should absolutely fix that and work on that. But in my experience, like actually walking through the steps, like doing the things I knew I needed to do, kind of helped the reprogramming to happen sort of automatically. Like the thoughts and the beliefs came after I walked through the evidence. Like it gave me the
Mm-hmm.
evidence for the beliefs that I'm worthy if I acted like I was worthy. And so
Yeah.
that can be a turning point for a lot of women that we hear in our culture, that you have to love yourself the way you are and accept yourself the way you are no matter how you look and things like that. And it's like I tried that for years and that never worked for me. And
Mm-hmm.
another message that we hear is like you have to love yourself before someone else can love you. And that's kind of true to an extent, but I just want to change the definition of loving. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, the definition of loving, like it's an action, it's a verb, it's something you
Mm-hmm.
do, but it's something you do like constantly, all day long, every day. It's not like one thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you're walking through those steps, like getting to the gym and eating right and putting a little effort into your appearance, I mean, that
Yeah.
was another cultural message that was a mess in my
Yeah.
brain. So yeah, tackling all those little things one at a time, then that kind of changed the mental programming.
Well, there's a lot there. Like the I guess self love is important. Like there's truth to that, right? Because like there's like you look like what you look like, but then there's okay, I can do things to, you know, if I went and exercised and I ate right and I got some haircuts. It's amazing like what I look like once I got a haircut. Like, dang, I'm feeling clean. I feel good. When you get a haircut,
Mm-hmm.
if it's for a man, like anyway, if it feels really good. But there is truth to like, hey, loving who you are. But I think just the word love is a perverted. It's been perverted. Like you said, love
Mm-hmm.
is a verb. Like I say that I love my wife and I love my kids, but I demonstrate it by the things I do for them. I sacrifice. I'm a Christian, so like one of the things I rely on is when you read John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world that He gave." So it tells us who God is. He's
Mm-hmm.
good. He loves us, but He gives. He loves us, and one of the ways He does it is by giving. And not only did He give, but He gave sacrificially. So it has to matter. And so like
Mm-hmm.
we've come to the place where love can mean a lot of things, where it's like two people having sex. It's like they're making love. Like, no, they're not. They're just having sex. You've distorted what that looks like. And also like this whole self-love thing. It's like, yes, you should love yourself, but there's things about yourself that also need to be fixed. It's not, I am loved, so you need to accept me as I am
Mm-hmm.
and be stagnant and not grow or not do anything from there. It's like, no, like put your best foot forward. That's part of loving yourself, is putting your best foot forward for yourself, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
not even the dating context, just be the best, put your best foot forward for yourself because this is good for you. And then hopefully you can attract somebody if that's your goal, but doing that for you is loving yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's okay to have goals of meeting
Mm-hmm.
someone. And like you said, if you put some energy and some effort into your appearance, that you see the difference and you love it, and then it's kind of that energy of you loving it that is attractive. That's what I tell women, that it's not that you do your hair and makeup or wear the specific clothes that particular man is going to like to see on you.
Mm-hmm.
You do it in such a way that it makes you happy and he's attracted to the happiness. And
Mm-hmm.
I always tell the story that when I met my husband, he physically saw like a glow around me, like an aura,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the feeling yourself glow
Mm-hmm.
in it. And sure, you might look great, but that's what's really attractive. There's a lot of good looking people out there that aren't
There is. Yeah.
attracting their soulmate,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
because they're not glowing from the inside.
Yeah. I think there's a lot. So I think there's two things I want to kind of go from there. Like, because you met your husband in person, right? The first time you met, it wasn't like a
Mm-hmm.
dating app swipe. it was he saw you, and there was a glow, because like you said, there are a lot of attractive people.
Mm-hmm.
um I think there's stuff that gets missed if you're trying to find somebody by going like on a website or a app, because I don't really get the picture of or the glow or like the feeling of somebody. There's a lot that gets missed in the picture, that when you in that person's presence, it's like, oh, like I get it. I this is might not be the best analogy, but like I've always seen pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's like, what they do, the Golden Gate Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? But then when I saw it in person, it's like, now I understand why everybody takes all these damn pictures of it, because it's
Right.
magnificent. It's beautiful. Like, you have to
Right.
go and see it to actually understand it. And I think that that's a lot of it with dating, is like you're missing a lot of that by not going out and interacting. And you see, like, I saw my wife and it was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm very private. I'm very, I was young too, whatever, but it was like, I have to like that. What is it? Those little cartoons, the hearts glows up and the twinkle toes,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how it was. It's like the tractor beam. Like, you have to
Right.
do it. And like, giving yourself that opportunity to be in those situations where, like, not only did he see that, but like, I'm pretty sure like there's some kind of thing that happens to you where, like, oh, this man is approaching me in a different way, and I like it. I can't explain it,
Oh
but I
yeah.
like it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was a dream come true, literally. Like I didn't realize it or fully like recall it. I guess I must have suppressed it, but I dreamt of that as a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
that a man would feel that way towards me
Mm-hmm.
and be that attracted to me and not be able to stay away, like
Mm-hmm.
have to approach. And so that was, yeah, that was amazing. And it's not, I think there's a lot of good reasons to get on dating apps. But you're right. You have to get out on the date, and that's why they're dating apps. The point is to go out on
Mm-hmm.
dates. Like you can't just sit at home and do your filtering from there. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to actually get out on dates and see someone in person to know what they're really like.
Do you recommend a lot of dating apps just so they can go out on dates, or like, because I mean, I don't know how that whole thing works, because I don't know, like, before, like, I think like there's like I couldn't explain how I met my wife in a million years, and I couldn't like recreate that, right? Like, there was just like a
Mhm.
time and a place, space kind of thing that happens. And so
Mhm.
like for people who are like intentionally are looking for it, like I wouldn't be the person to give advice. So,
Right.
but I think that there is a lot to just like having that encounter like you had with your husband, because I had that something similar with my wife, where it's just like, oh yeah, there's something here. I can't explain it. Just call it magic for whatever
Right.
reason. That I don't know if that translates when you're going about it using the apps and the technology.
Mhm. Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, and I think this is common that usually, especially if you've met really early on and you've been in a great marriage for a long time, like
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to explain to someone how to get themselves in that situation, especially if they're starting later in life. So I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
kind of a unique perspective that I can bring,
Mm-hmm.
is that I did intentionally go out to construct, like, yeah, you can't create that moment, you can't dictate and paint that by numbers, how to
Mm-hmm.
have that situation and that experience happen. But
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of things you can stack up to create the conditions for that to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
because I was so intentional about it, I can, explain exactly how I did it and help others create that. So yeah, I do recommend dating apps, especially for women, because and it's different. Like you mentioned, like having that pull and that just like gut feeling that you had to go talk to her, like almost like it was uncontrollable. And that is such a gift for a woman to have you experience, and a gift to
Mm-hmm.
you to experience it. And so it's different for like I want to help men cultivate that feeling, which is a different strategy than women. What they need to do to stack up the circumstances to allow that to happen is they do need to be feeling themselves, and so they're gonna do all these things to improve themselves, and one of them is they go out on dates and they experience positive male attention. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many people that are just lacking in that experience, and you know, the internet is super fast and efficient to help us do some things like that, and you get to experience the abundance. If you've been in a space where it's like, as a woman, like clinging to the one guy you thought you just had to be with, and then that relationship fell apart, well, you're experiencing real scarcity, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm never gonna find a guy like him again. He was the one, like he was that one guy, and I'm not getting him
Mm-hmm.
back. Um, but when you go and kind of see how many fish are in the sea, and you let them take you out on some dates, and they tell you how beautiful you are, and they appreciate that you put time into looking nice, and what kind of experience it is to be out on a date with you, they can, you know, then that can really, you know, that's nourishment for a
Mm-hmm.
woman. So that can give you the experience of abundance
Mm-hmm.
that can help you glow and feel like not clingy and desperate, and not
Mm-hmm.
like some repellent feelings that a lot of women are
Mm-hmm.
experiencing these days.
Is that an identity? I guess it's kind of is, right. If you have that scarcity mindset that there's not enough, um,
Right.
that kind of that will dictate how you interact the cleanliness. Like I guess like you said, like if somebody comes around and they're halfway decent, then you're gonna be cleanly. Whereas like if you have the abundance mindset, it's like, well, this is not going to be a good fit, and I shouldn't try to force it. I can keep waiting,
Mm-hmm.
or yeah, just keep waiting
Right.
until till I could just say it lines up and it feels like it clicks, because I think
Mm-hmm.
it kind of does click. Like you can have somebody who has like checks all the right boxes, and just like for some reason like this takes a lot of effort when all the boxes are checked, but it takes a lot of
Mm-hmm.
effort. So maybe this isn't
Yeah.
the right fit, and to be patient, to be like, okay, I can let that go and keep going and be okay. Is it
Right.
a lot? Do you think too? Is just like the woman just having things going on for herself? Because I think that's the same thing with the men too, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have anything else going on, then all you got is a girl. Then you can make some bad decisions because you have nothing else going on.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, your video kind of broke up for me for a second there. But yeah, it's gonna you're gonna make some bad decisions, and it's gonna be you're gonna put off some bad vibes, you know, and you know, people pick up on that. And you know, you're saying about how some people are stuck in that scarcity mindset, and it, you know, our brains are pattern recognition machines, and it's they're going to try to explain why you don't have your person, or why the person you loved left,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, that kind of, you know, why only people you don't like are attracted to you. and and so it's going to come up with some kind of explanation and try to guess why that is, and it might be really wrong, and it might be telling you you're doomed, or that God doesn't want you to get married, or you know,
Uh-huh.
some that we come up with some theories like that,
Uh-huh.
and it can be hard to explain away unless you have some evidence that contradicts it.
What are some like easy wins that you have for people to kind of build that up? Because I think that's really important. The identity issue, because you talked about the affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can tell yourself all these things, and I get that, but there's nothing like having like a nice little win to be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
like this does work, or oh, this
Mm-hmm.
this thing, it does make sense. Because I think self-esteem was kind of that thing, right, where it was like that. I think we might be kind of close in age where like they would tell us like these self-esteem things to try and build us up, but then didn't follow up with the competency that really comes with self-esteem that builds it up. So what are some things that you kind of help women or men with to help build those
Yeah. Well,
the
first of
self-esteem?
all, I appreciate the compliment that we're close in age. We're not. um, but yeah, for me, it was really about health and fitness and taking control of what I saw in the mirror were like the really that was how I felt like yeah, I could do anything and
Mm-hmm.
I could anything I set my mind to,
Mm-hmm.
I could achieve because so one like key mindset shift for me was realizing that what I had been told or heard all my life like you know when you like take a weekend like Thanksgiving and like
Mm-hmm.
shovel all the food
Yeah. Yeah.
you can see it, right? Can't you
Uh-huh.
see it in the mirror when you go on Sunday or Monday morning and it's like yeah, I it was Thanksgiving, I can see
Yeah.
it.
The
um
pants were a little tighter on Sunday.
yeah, right, there's
Yeah.
some physical evidence. And um but then we're told, oh no, you're the only one that can see it, no one else can see it, it's not really there, it's all in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that that message had insidiously like convinced me that inches don't matter, pounds don't matter, like that those small differences that I could see physically with real evidence, that they don't matter. And that's like betraying yourself, that's like
Mm-hmm.
you know like you lying to yourself, right? And
Yeah.
so I had to really fix that by going, no, I can see it. And not only can I see it going in a bad direction, I can see it going in the other direction. And
Mm-hmm.
when my pants are a little looser, then that's like real evidence that I've done something, to change what I see and to change how I feel about myself. And then it adds up. And it's like, wow, two pant sizes become three and four,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're like a different person.
You know what's interesting is how like on the area of Twitter, like how big the fitness is, like because I played sports pretty much the whole my young life and all that, and I always kind of worked out all the way through, but like seeing people who probably like didn't, and then they say like, oh, once I found like the gym, it transformed my life, and I'm like, well, I don't
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand
Mm-hmm.
how that works, but really it's like the first time they've actually really like taken control of something and like I guess impose their will on themselves, right? Like I'm going to physically change my body, and how empowering that is. Like it really is one of those things where it's like I didn't get it at first, but like listen to you and like listen to other people, it's like, yeah, like this is a place where it's like I have control over the things that I eat, and I have control over like me exercising, and like the transformation that is, and like how huge that is. So is that like one of like the
Mm-hmm.
fundamental things, like when they're going through you, it's like, hey, let's get you to the gym, let's get you eating right so we can
Mm-hmm.
take control of these things. Because I think for the most part, if you look around, like people are on autopilot, they just eat whatever they want, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
exercising, and we sit more than we ever have. It's the most convenient time, the easiest time, the most comfortable time to be alive. That's not a good recipe for successful healthy bodies. So is that like
Mm-hmm.
one of the like the first years when you go through, it's like, hey, let's stack you up with this win, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. One of my biggest questions that I ask people is, what do you need to be doing that you're not? Like, I'm here as, I'm a coach, but I'm like more of a mirror than I am like a fountain of wisdom. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you already know what you need to be doing, and you just haven't done it. You just haven't been, holding yourself accountable.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, if I'm not going to sit there and tell someone they need to lose weight, but if they know they need to be getting to the gym and eating
Mm-hmm.
better, then that's going to make a big difference when they
Yeah.
actually do it.
Um. Let me ask, like, I don't want to say this kind of in a way that doesn't sound like like are the women that come to you, are they already like attractive women? Because
Usually.
like,
Hmm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what like what's the like? Because you would think like, hey, attractive women, you know,
Hmm.
guys are like attractive women. They're gonna get asked out on dates. So like, what
Hmm.
is it the issue you talked about earlier, or the scarcity that they're kind of they have that fixed mindset, or is it something else where it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe they're not the most I don't know, pleasing, or not pleasing in the sense of like they're not nice to be around, like that.
Hmm.
And that instance, would you say that that's kind of, I'm trying to feel around to say like what kind of
Yeah. Yeah. It's
people
usually,
are coming to you?
yeah, it's usually a combination of things. And I try to take a holistic approach and don't say it's just, one thing or the other. But yeah, scarcity mindset, feeling, and they're all tied together, right? Like it's,
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel worthy of abundance if you're locked in and looking at, how you don't have what you want. And so what was the other thing you said? About like pleasantness to be
Mm-hmm.
around. And that's true because it's like what they're missing is that inner peace and that alignment with who they really are, like embracing their feminine spirit, and that
Mm-hmm.
they've usually lost that along the way because we're such a like go 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 culture, and like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, everything's convenient and efficient, but also you're judged at on your achievements and your degrees, and we talked about that a little bit before we started. That's been going around on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, a woman's got all these degrees, and like, why can't she find a man? And it's like, well, because she's not in touch with who she really is on the inside, because she's been trying to, live this path that's not in alignment. She's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you reconnect with that, then it's like, oh, it is so much easier to be myself. It is so much easier to connect with other people. And it's so much easier to like let go of controlling. And like I think that's one of the most like repellent like qualities of a woman, that's like so tempting. Like it's in our nature to want to control, but like need to release that and to
Mm-hmm.
to keep that at bay.
I was speaking to David earlier, and he was talking about like the masculine, how the masculine, wants to give. And I could see that, like, I want to give to my wife. And when we
Mm-hmm.
dated, it was very natural to give. But for my wife, it was, to receive what I had given and to take it in a, like a, I don't know, a gracious way where like it brought her joy, the things
Mm-hmm.
that I was bringing to her. And I think with, now, I think that women are being told that they need to achieve and do, and this whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, I want to be able to give to you, and that brings
Mm-hmm.
you, it's pleasing to you, the things that I bring to you. I guess it's a simplistic way of saying that. So I don't know if now if women, because of the trust breakdown, that now they're going on and they're doing these things on their own, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
like having that vicious cycle. It's like, well, I can do this on my own. I don't need you to bring me flowers. I don't need you to pay for dinner. I don't need you to do these things. Where it's like, well, I need someone to give to, and you don't need me. So
Mm-hmm.
this I'm gonna go somewhere else, even though you're attractive and you check these boxes. Like, I don't feel like there's a reason for me to be around. Reason, however you want to explain that, but I don't feel the like this fits, this clicks. So I'll keep on going. I don't know if that's what you're seeing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you've really hit the nail on the head there. It is so hard for most of these women that come to me to just let a man open the door for them, to pay for dinner. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't. Yeah, they struggle so much with like, you know, for one, they're not worthy of it. And for two, like, isn't it just like a burden on him? Shouldn't I have to reciprocate? You know, shouldn't I, be doing as much for him as he's doing for me? And just receiving is the most feminine thing we can do. But then we have to struggle with like, it, is that okay? Like,
Well, I think to be fair too, though, I mean, you have men who do these things because the expectation is like, well, I'm going to get sex if I do these things, and so a woman is like, well, I'm going to be on my guard because are you just doing this
Mm-hmm.
because you just genuinely want to just be good to me and are doing this to be good, or because you're trying to have sex, which is the state of, well, I can't say the state, but I think the message that women are getting. He's going to bring you flowers, he buys dinner, so she puts out, like, that's the
Mm-hmm.
expectation. So why as a woman, like, looking from the woman's perspective, why would I want to receive this if this is what the expectation, it's coming with strings attached, basically. Like, if this, you're not
Right.
doing this out of the goodness of, like, hey, you are enamored with my beauty, you want to know me, you want to just give to me because you see something
Right.
in me. It's like, no, you want to get what you want so you can, be another notch on
Right.
the belt, or just because you want to please yourself. It's not coming from that. So I think,
Right.
going back to, like, there's blame, there's responsibility, we'll say responsibility on both ends. And I think on both ends, that's there's blame to go on for both.
Yeah, for sure. If you and again, it's like what kind of messages are you surrounding yourself with? Um, because there are men out there who don't think that way. But if you're constantly only, around those kind of men, then
Mm-hmm.
you you have to accept some responsibility on your
Mm-hmm.
part too.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, you're right. Then it becomes, oh, a relationship is transactional and I need
Mm-hmm.
to um reciprocate and or give whatever is wanted or expected
Mm-hmm.
in return. And if you that's why I talk so much about boundaries. Like if you already have your standards in place, you already know that 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 there is a man out there who's going to um you know be enamored with your beauty, like you said, and do things just because he wants to, then you can receive without putting those expectations on yourself. So you know whatever he thinks is going to happen or he wants to happen doesn't affect me and my actions. So I'm not going to put out on XY, whatever number
Mm-hmm.
date. I'm going to wait until there's a commitment there and I know that we have a future together. And then that really filters out um, those people that
Mm-hmm.
just aren't matching.
Yeah, which is important, right? Like, if you were getting the vibe that was the kind of guy that was around, like, don't keep on going out with that guy, because that's not gonna end well for you, or him, or both parties. So having those boundaries. So is that something that actually comes first before you even get to identity? Is like, hey, let's get your boundaries right, because you're worth your boundaries no matter what,
Hmm.
right? Like, whether you're
Right.
out of shape or whatever, like, your boundaries are your boundaries, like that those things do not. So is that where the primary step one, so to speak, is like, hey, let you're worthy of your boundaries. Like, you could say it's
Hmm.
all the self-love stuff, but you're worthy of your boundaries for sure.
Well,
There's
and
rooms to improve. Go ahead.
yeah, and but it like it's a self-feeding mechanism, right? It's like if you are out there putting out on the first or second or third date or, however many weeks it takes to then you've just communicated your boundary, your
Mm-hmm.
worthiness, and you're acting out those are your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's why I kind of say you have to really take the steps even if you're not believing in that worthiness yet. Um
Mm-hmm.
so uh sorry, I lost my train of thought. I got a phone call.
Oh, just
um
like the boundary issues.
yeah.
Does that come first?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so then so yeah, knowing what you want and allowing that it's okay to want it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that doesn't even mean that anyone has to give it to you, but just acknowledging this is what I want. Yeah, I want to be treated like a princess. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
because there's going to be guys that will use your doubts against you. Like, oh, who said you deserve the princess treatment? And
Mm-hmm.
I actually made that the name of one of my courses because I kept telling my dating clients that Like, it's okay to want the princess treatment. And it's, have that image in your mind of he opens the doors for you, and you're acting
Mm-hmm.
very graciously and elegantly,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's going to bring you down. And then once you acknowledge that it's okay to want that, so I guess maybe that could like bridge the gap between like believing you're worthy of it, is just like,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay for me to want it. Like, I don't, that doesn't put any obligation on anybody else to give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to give me the princess treatment, you think I'm a spoiled brat because I want to be picked up at home for a date,
Yeah.
you're under no obligation to take me out. So
Yeah.
bye,
That's
So
yeah.
yeah, you're right.
That's a little funny to me that's considered the princess treatment, because that was just like the man's role is like, you're gonna go knock on the
Yeah.
door, I'm gonna open the doors, like that's just
Yeah.
kind of normal.
Yeah.
That's considered the princess treatment to me.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
um but as far as like the boundaries, I think like what I was referring to is like, say the sex is probably the easiest one, right?
Hmm.
Like a woman who doesn't feel worthy will, I think, go into sex sooner than she wanted to, because she didn't have the boundary, because she didn't feel like she was worth it. But like if you have that,
Hmm.
so that's what I mean by the boundary. So does it start first there? Like, hey, you know what?
Hmm.
Like, if you want, the type of man who will commit to you, we'll say that,
Hmm. Yeah.
then this is the type of thing that, these are the type of boundaries that you have to have
Hmm.
when she's put in that position with the man who, like, is finally giving the affirmation of beauty and things like that. Like, I think a woman can tend to like I think like a woman wants to submit, like, to a good man, and she'll jump in, she'll have sex with him because she wants to keep him around, because she understands that he's good, or because she just wants to keep him around and violate her own boundaries because she wants to please him and keep him around. So that's what I
Hmm.
mean by the boundaries. Is that like step one, where it's like, hey, you know what, like, we need to have,
Yeah.
strong boundaries in this instance, because I think that's probably the easiest one
Yeah.
to go at before you, and then from there we can work on your identity and your self-worth. But this is the one right here that's gonna protect you.
Definitely. Yeah, and it can be really, really hard to really nail people down on that, because it's not that I tell them they need to do that. I mean, I'll explain that, you know, how our physiology works, and like, oh, if you've been in a relationship and you've had sex before, like, how that works. You start feeling clingy, and you start
Mm-hmm.
feeling desperate and like anxious that he's going to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so is that the situation you want to be in? Like, do you think that's going to actually help keep the man around that you want to stay around? Or is it going to strain the relationship? And is it going to, put you back in that scarcity mindset?
Mm-hmm.
And, that's a big thing that I think helps with my approach, is that not only do we not have sex early on, but that goes along with also dating multiple people, and that
Mm-hmm.
can like generate some controversy and some hard feelings. But it goes hand in hand, because like when you're seeing other men, then that puts them kind of in the anxious, like, I need to do something to lock her down kind of
Mm-hmm.
position. Whereas if you're sleeping together, you're only with the one guy, then you're the one that feels like you're desperate. You got to lock this down and like make it worth the investment.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of, I explain how all that works, and kind of, it's okay to have your power in the situation, the relationship. It's your life, and if you're going to have children, like, it's your children's lives. Like, you need to take
Mm-hmm.
this seriously. And so I think that helps kind of put them in the mindset to go, okay, well, I do acknowledge how I feel if I have sex, and I don't want to gamble that it's not actually going to pay off, and we're not actually going to end up married.
Mm-hmm.
And then, confronted with that, I can say, well, what's your ideal? How would you really love it to go? Well, I'd really love to know that he's going to be my husband before we have sex. And so then that, then they're like, okay, well, then that's what you need to do.
Well, because the thing too is, if you had sex too soon, it's gonna artificially prolong the relationship that you wouldn't have been in anyway, right? Like the man will stick around longer because like, well, I'm getting sex, so
Yep.
if she hadn't, I would have gone to the next woman that I could have sex with, or I would have find out that I really didn't like her, but I liked sex because it's fun. And for the woman, it's like those feelings of attachment and the investment, like you said. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm invested, so I'm going to stick around, and I'm having these feelings of clinginess that happen for a
Hmm.
woman. So
Yeah.
what could have been a month of dating turns into a year,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, well, we're having sex, so like you need to justify that, which I think is
Yep.
something that people don't think about when the consequences or what you're playing with when you were dealing with sex.
Yeah.
You did mention. Go ahead. Do you have something to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say that's what you're totally right there. And usually when women come to me, they feel like there's a clock ticking. Like I don't want to waste any more time. And and that's why my approach is like so efficient when you do get to know multiple people at a at the same time, you have options and you're not gonna stay in a relationship for a year that shouldn't have lasted more than a month. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, you're right about that. It's much more efficient. And then I was just going to ask or add that knowing more about the opposite sex really helps with understanding some of these dilemmas, because when you are very clear on sex is not the same for him as it is for me, and what are the differences. And that's why I like have courses called Inside a Man's Mind and Inside a Woman's Mind, so so we can stop making the mistake of thinking that what something means to me is the same as it means to
Mm-hmm.
you. And that gives you some freedom also to have your own boundaries and standards.
Mm-hmm. Speaking, I think we had mentioned like kids earlier in dating. Like you have, kids that are approaching dating age, or I don't know, might be dating. Um, what kind of advice do you give to them? Because I wanted to set the context too. Is like we had there was a tweet. I think her name was Holistic Honey, had said that she had a friend who was attractive, a virgin, and had a master's degree, but the dating pool of men was not there left a lot to be desired, which I could understand, because I think that with men, boys being exposed to porn and what that does to their minds. And so
Mm-hmm.
like I think now more than ever you have to be is a lot more careful with your kids, like even the boys, because the girls are being trained also
Mm-hmm.
by the porn and the music and things like that. So what are some like
Yeah.
things that 'cause my kids aren't dating age yet, but we want them, set them up for marriage. That's what we want for them. But what are some things that you're all right? Had a little internet issue there, but yeah, we were talking about advice for your teenage kids who are going into dating. Like what are some things that you're giving advice for them for, especially because the culture is hostile really to marriage, I think.
Yeah, well, it really depends and varies widely on geography, geographic location. Like we were saying about like the princess treatment, just for like being picked up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can see a huge drastic difference in the larger cities and like in Canada, parts of Europe, like Scandinavia. They're Germany, like they're super, super egalitarian, and there's a lot of resentment in a lot of the men if you let them buy you dinner repeatedly and things like that. So it can be super rough. But even just where I am, which is southwestern Virginia, and it's not a big city, but we moved when I met my husband. We were in the city, which is it sounds funny
Mm-hmm.
because it's such a small town, but it is a city, and we moved from there to a suburb, and it's night and day different climate and culture on You can just see it in the kids, like they're, where you might be able to see a deterioration, over the last few years, 10 years. Like I've talked to teachers and they're like, yeah, the kids today versus 10 years ago, like I'm talking 2-year-olds, like completely different capabilities. And it's amazing how fast that changes. But anyways, that might be the case in one area. And then over here where we are now, like it's just expected that these boys, like they want to find a girlfriend and they're going to hold on to her and they're going to talk about getting married. And yet to see what's the next few years will hold, but they're picking up the girls on the dates. And I communicate to my kids like a lot. Like I would say to parents, like just talk as much as you can. Don't talk at them and just lecture them and babble so they're bored, but have an exchange and raise the issues and raise the topics as much as you can. So my kids understand dating is for marriage. That is the purpose, is to find your spouse. And
what's interesting you say about geography, because I was talking to Nate Chronicles of Nate.
Yeah,
he was talking about his son was interested in a girl, so for him to go out with this girl, he had to go and talk to the dad. And I was like, yeah. And I mean, Nate's a Texas boy. I didn't have to do those kinds of things. And this was, 20 years ago. I mean, it's kind of like that. My relationship with my wife was a little different, but like, I don't remember any of my friends having to ask anybody's parents to go out on a date. And, so the location I think is really funny, because you hear like, places like San Francisco and things like that, where it's just like, wow, like the men there are, leave quite a bit to be desired. So I'm sorry, that just kind of came in my head. I was like, that's really crazy. And so going from the small town or the small city, you felt that the suburbs were actually a better fit for you guys there anyway?
Oh yeah. 100%.
Because usually small town, you think of like that's what you think of, like, oh, small town boys, they kind of think this way, but it wasn't like that for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small city. I don't want to like misrepresent it. It's not like a
small city.
It's not like a one-horse town or something, but it's not a big city is what I mean. But yeah, huge difference. Like in like just I don't want to get too far off onto like politics or anything like that, but I mean, like how the kids dress, how just their appearance, like you can tell a huge difference. That there's what's in their head is going to be different too.
Yeah.
And I don't say any of this to discourage anyone from dating right where they are, because it just takes one, like you can find that one person, and we have the internet now too. So it's like you're not really that restricted on geography, but when it comes to kids, they're not going to have the option to date someone halfway around the world. Please don't let them. True. Please don't give them that option.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah.
But yeah, my daughter's dates had to come in and meet me and my husband, and they go out on a couple of dates, and then we're gonna sit down and talk, and then we're gonna invite you over for dinner, and we're gonna ask a lot of questions, and that's expected. And for me, like having come from that feeling unworthy and signing up for a really bad relationship and examining what went into it, what were the ingredients that set the stage for the bad relationship versus what can I do for my daughter to have a good one, is as a parent communicating that your daughter is worth the trouble, then and that boy needs to rise to the occasion. And your boy should be looking for the same thing. He deserves a good woman that has high standards, and so it's good for everybody. But it can feel unfair in the moment. But we teach that it's not about the moment; it's about long term, right? And so a little bit of inconvenience is totally worth it.
Yeah, in that. When you're a teenager, that time, it just feels like forever for them, right? Like I think like 10 years ago to me was like felt like yesterday, but it's like, oh, that was that was 10 years ago, but you have to remember when you were a teenager, like a month felt like a really long time. So you're having to be able to communicate with them like, hey, like I get it, but like I love you. And I think that's really what it is too, right? That you're not an inconvenience. Doing these things is not inconvenience, because I love you and I value you. And the more that I think, the more as a parent I can communicate to my kids and show them that I love them, that's gonna help them. Because like I think you can kind of put up rules and do those things, but if they don't know that it's done in love, like it's just a rule, a arbitrary rule to be broken. And they won't really understand it either too, right? Like you won't understand a lot of things that your parents said until you had kids. That could be a long time. Like for me, like I knew my parents loved me, so I would just do some of the things they said just because, like, okay, I'm gonna chalk it up to I don't get it right now, but I'm gonna trust them because they love me and invested in me, so I'm gonna do this thing. Oh, that worked out well for me. Okay, I get it. So like, I think I don't know if like that was a thing for you when you were a kid, or like that, if that wasn't communicated enough.
Yeah, it was not. And it is loving to have those boundaries with your child, that they have to, hold up their end of the bargain, and they have to show you respect. And that, if you don't do that, like, you are communicating the wrong thing, and they are going to learn that they're not worth it. And that that whatever was easier for the parent is the way it went, and then that correlates with their value. So yeah, if you love your kids, you're the one that has to stick up for them, and you cannot expect them to have higher standards. I mean, and if they do, you probably need to look a little harder within, because they're there to just sponge off of what are you teaching them? What is the message you're sending with your actions?
Yeah. I think going back to that, I don't know if we mentioned that the tweet from Holistic Honey about the masters and I think, so basically if I'm paraphrasing, she said, like, I have a friend, she's pretty, she's a virgin, and she has her masters, but like the dating pool is not good. Like, I can see that from like quite a few angles, because I think people get stuck on like the virgin thing, like somehow like, oh, that means that this person is like moral and good, with it's signs of it. And like the masters, it's like, oh, like I've achieved, and like, so that, like, hey, here's these two things, like, so everything else should just kind of like happen because she did the right things, which those are good things. I don't knock any of those things, but I think there's a lot that is missing. I think people on Twitter specifically, like, they'll hang like things like silver bullets. It's like, this is the thing that I do, and then it's supposed to work like some kind of like, I plug this thing into the USB and it works. I like, this is, I think, the mentality it has. Like, no, there's a lot more that goes on to it than just those things. What do you think about that, Leila?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because when I was single and learning all this stuff, or trying to elevate my value to find a good man, I went back to school and I got my MBA. And so yeah, I totally believed that. I totally thought that was going to help me find a man. And paying off debt and having great credit score, and saving up a down payment for a house, like all that stuff was supposed to help me get married. And oh my gosh, was I ever wrong. So and it's funny that it ties in with advice for your kids and how to parent your kids too, because like I have girls, and I see all women all over Twitter saying, well, yeah, I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, and family is my top priority, but I need this backup plan. I need this thing to fall back on, in case that doesn't happen. And what you're doing is setting yourself up for it not to happen. Like, not that you can't meet someone in college, like a million people have done it, and that's great. It used to be, you went to college for an MRS degree, you'd meet your husband there, but not so much about the masters, I don't think. Which is not to knock a master's degree, but couple problems with it. One, you are not actually setting yourself up to be a good wife. Being a good wife has nothing to do with a master's degree, and you're putting yourself into that masculine race, rat race energy where you're judged on your achievements. It is not cultivating the feminine energy that you need to be attractive to the masculine that you want. No man wants to be competed with his wife, and so that's one thing that women need to wrap their head around. And so when, like, I think about my girls and setting up their futures, and they're thinking about college and they're thinking about jobs and things, and it's like I ask them questions like, why do you need a job, why do you need to go to college? Like, not that they shouldn't, but think through what your goals are and make sure you are actually spending time where your priorities lie. If you say you want to be a mother, but then you go, just dedicate your time to schooling, then you're not actually living in alignment with those goals. And the second problem is that you're also setting yourself up to feel superior to any man that doesn't have a master's degree. And that is throwing the dynamic out of balance. That's throwing your masculine feminine polarity off. And so what we see, like I totally don't believe statistics apply to an individual. Like any individual can overcome whatever their odds are. But what we do see in populations is that the more women get higher degrees, and it is majority women getting higher degrees, there's over half, then they want to marry a man who has greater degree, which means they have a much smaller pool to choose from. And so it's just, we're just buying into all the wrong mindsets. Like, working class guy can make tons of money, like plumbers make tons of money, and vice versa. Like, doctors and lawyers can be horrible at making, they don't keep their money, they spend it, and so you could be setting yourself up for a 2-income household where y'all make over $500,000 a year, but you have nothing to show for it, and you can't even stay home with your kids. Like, so we're putting our emphasis in the wrong place.
Side note, do you remember that show Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe? Like, he would go, like, the thing that he said too was that all those people, they were all like millionaires, but he didn't want that to be a part of the message. He just wanted it to be like the dirty jobs. This is the jobs we do. But I mean, to say that, like, hey, my husband is a pig farmer, at the cocktail party, if that's what you want, doesn't really fly. Like, hey, my husband is the doctor. Or, I think now too, with internet and the way people are able to make money, like, to be able to let go of like these titles, because I think we grew up with titles like, hey, this is the VP, this is the corner office, like, what is it that you want? The other thing too with the education, like my wife, she got her degree, but my wife was really smart, so we homeschool. So like I hear that. So it's like, if you're going to be doing these things and you say, oh, I'm doing this because I want to be able to teach my children, is a lot different than I'm going in to get my MBA because I want to go and compete in the marketplace. It's like, oh, I'm doing this for my future kids. Like, as a man, I was like, whoa, all right, mama, like, what like, like, that gets the dad in me kind of like jumps up, like, oh, this is for the future kids. Like, you're thinking about that stuff already. Like, that is very appealing. So I think goes back to like, why are you doing this? Like, are you doing this because you're thinking about like homeschooling, or you want to be able to just have, help your future kids? Like, that's much different. But again, I don't know if that's what's going through their head when they're doing it, and when we're talking about these examples, I don't think that's the case. It's
usually that I need this plan in case it doesn't work out, I can't find a man I can trust, or he walks out on me and I have to go back to work, and that is a toxic mindset. And I had one client that I was counseling about her having that kind of mindset, like, well, I got to go ahead and set up this career before I have kids, because then, I don't, what if I have to go back to work and I need to have this foundation already laid? Well, that's not what kind of certification you got or degree you got is not what's going to ensure that you can make a living if you need to. Like, things happen. Man could get disabled, or you
Yeah.
never know. But what's going to ensure that you land on your 2 feet is your skills and your intelligence and your resourcefulness, not a degree or a certain amount of job experience
Yeah.
that you think you need to check off the list. And going back to geography too for a second, like being out here where we are, we're in the county, and they have like at the county level, they have vocational programs at the high school, and so like that, I was like, whoa, I didn't know they actually do that. And but then seeing that happens out here in the suburbs, that guys are training to be, masonry workers, they're training to be mechanics, they're training to be, these working class jobs that actually can make them a lot of money. And especially if you're going to have your own business, like that's your ticket to freedom. And then on the other hand, doctors and lawyers don't always live the value of having the wife stay at home.
Yeah.
Those are different values.
What's interesting is I'm having a house built, so we're kind of waiting on that, and I just got an email
Nice.
from the superintendent, like we can't move forward because we can't find a plumber right now.
Yeah.
And it's just like man, like I need like I'm not handy at all, but it's like, man, if I knew, like I'm sure the plumber that comes in, he's gonna get command a pretty penny, because there's no other plumbers.
Oh yeah,
So,
contractors. Everybody's waiting
Yeah.
on contractors these days,
Yeah.
and subcontractors. Yeah.
So it's just like, man, like the idea for us that was drilled into us was, college and office work, white collar, but it's like, don't dismiss what the blue,
Yeah.
you can own your own business. But the thing for me too is, like, my kids, like I can't train my kids at my job, because this is not that kind of, I don't do that kind of work. Whereas like a plumber can, like, hey, little Johnny, little Sally, come with me on my job site. This is how you run your business, and you could set that forward for them, and that,
Yeah. Generational wealth. Yep.
Exactly. So there's a lot to that, but going back to just I think the location matters, because they're kind of coming from the same mentality, right? Like the dating pool has the same mentality, whereas like in the suburbs where you're at, the mentality of all the kids really is similar to your values, which I think is really important when it comes to dating. So I think
it's no guarantee. It's not.
No,
it's not all the kids, and so that's why you got to talk to your kids. You can't just move someplace and be like, okay, I'm done. You have to teach them how to identify people that have the same values as you, and follow through.
One of the most proudest tweets I have, and it's my pin tweet. Like when my wife and I were dating, she said I would be a good dad, and like that was like one of the things, like, to me, it was like, oh, you see me that way, because I was like 17, like for me it's like, oh wow, you see me that way, like. And then she was talking to my daughter, and I overheard her. She says, you want to find a man like your dad. It's like all these years later, like this, like she still feels that way about me, but also that yes, I am the example for my daughters. Like, I'm very sweet to my kids, but I was talking to David, like I'm very sweet and cuddly with the kids, but also like there's certain lines that you do not cross. It's like, okay, dad is mad now, so you know that you messed up, you done messed up now, and now you're in trouble. So they know that, but they can come to me and be cuddly, ask me for things, but they also know there's certain lines that they do not cross. And so like I hope the hope and the prayer for me always for my kids is that they find a good man to marry who loves God, and that's really kind of the direction that I point them in. Same with my sons, that they be pointed towards God, so that they can be good men, be good husbands, and good fathers. Like that. That's really what it comes down to for me, and that's why I love talking to you. I just talked to David. It's like, man, it's so refreshing to speak to people who are like, hey, let's change this discussion that's happening around dating and marriage, because marriage is wonderful. I love being married, and the dating, I think, needs to get cleaned up, because the porn, the culture, all that stuff is tainting them, so that they're not able to step into marriage, and then also from there not able to have a good marriage, because all these things are pulling at them. Because to be fair to them, Like, I, we didn't have that same struggle back then. But I also think that's why it's so cool, because you kind of went and through both phases, right? Like when you got remarried, the porn was kind of already out there, and so did that affect like the men from when you had first dated and got married, and then kind of went back into the scene, later on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I was a little bit. I think I was a little bit oblivious to it. I mean, I guess I was certainly aware that it was out there, but it didn't occur to me that that could be a problem with the guys that I would date. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just never occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but like going back to like, okay, so just yeah, there's this like trend, and there's these prevalent like influences, but again, it it doesn't it doesn't guarantee anything on an
Mm-hmm.
individual level, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's really up to the parenting. It's really up to parents to, and I don't mean parenting in the sense of like whether you were, hippie natural breastfeeding or like strict
Mm-hmm.
or, whatever, not
Yeah.
that kind of parenting, but the parenting in the sense of like, did you teach them, what they should be looking for? Did you have these conversations? Like you said, like your wife is talking to your kids about finding someone, a husband that will be the way their dad is and the way their dad treats them and everything. And that is what makes the difference. It's
Mm-hmm.
not what's going on in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's a lot of people struggling, um, but the parenting's just always going to make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see it whenever there's like a program for whatever reason, they come out with this thing that kids need to do.
Mm-hmm.
It The ones with the parents that are involved are always going to get ahead. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what you try to do on a systemic level.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Family's always going to make the
Yeah.
difference.
And I think more and more people are realizing it. Like for me, like I used to work, you know, at the office. Now I'm working from home, and it was like, man, I really like being home and being able to, build something where I can be home and be around my kids. That's why, the homeschooling for us, we homeschool our kids now. It wasn't because of the academic we thought was gonna be better. Just we wanted to be around our kids more, like, and we wanted them to be around each other
Mm-hmm.
more. Like I was talking to somebody, and it was like, yeah, me and my brother, we went to the same school, but we never saw each other. Like we were only like 2-3 years apart,
Yeah.
and it's just like, we live lives where everybody is separate now. So we've been doing it since we were kids. Like we saw each other when we were
Yep.
home, and family gatherings. But the day to day was like, well, the importance was go to school and you go to your little place, your family, but you never see each other. So
Yeah.
then when you're older, what's the difference if you don't see each other? Like we've been doing this. I had my activities, you had your activities. We do those things, and so I think that was something that we wanted to cultivate.
Yeah.
Just the homeschooling, like, hey, you have a strong sense of who your mom and your dad are. You have a strong sense of who your sisters and your brothers are, so you can work things out. So then when you're older and mom and dad are gone, like, you still look for each other because this is what you're used to. You're not used to being by yourself. So I think
Yeah. And
what
a big part of dating is trying to form attachments. And if I don't know how close you are with Adam Lane Smith,
yes,
at
yes,
the
yeah, he talks
Prometheus.
about
Yeah, he talks about
attachment. Yeah.
attachment all the time. And it really is true. I remember it from my own teenagerhood that we go out seeking affection if we don't get it at home.
Mm-hmm.
And that healthy attachment is the foundation for everything. And so just like quick example from my life, like homeschooling. I'm homeschooling my sixth grader because I felt like she had a broken attachment because we went through the divorce and the custody battle when she was 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, she got sent to daycare for long stretches, and she was kind of like, the black sheep at one house versus the
Mm-hmm.
other. And didn't get enough time with me as her mother. Uh, and I felt like that really handicapped her in her emotional maturity and her development. Like she's super, super mature, in some ways, and then in other ways, like she needed we needed to bond more. And so, I brought her home as soon as I could, to homeschool her and to try to reestablish that, because if that's broken, it can be fixed. But if you let them go out into the dating world and they've got those hormones raging, like you're gonna get some really bad results.
It's not a recipe for success.
Yeah, and like, I mean, teenage pregnancy, like that can cripple your entire family, and you've got grandkids now, and you've got generations of kids who are crippled by the this one bad mistake. That's
so, because it's funny that you said that, because David and I had the same conversation about the generations. It's like, I'm not just me. I'm thinking of my grandkids and down the line, and he has the same thing. And then talking to you, it's like, I think this is why I end up having conversations with you guys, because it's like, these are the conversations we want to have. That, and I love what you said too about the reattachment. Like, hey, this thing happened, but there is grace. There is grace there. Like, I firmly believe that, and I think that's something that's missing too with that whole virgin thing. Like, dude, like, you're not perfect either. There is grace, and you're gonna have to extend grace for a variety of reasons. And so grace, just so I understand, like, you get punishment. Mercy is you didn't get the punishment. Grace is you didn't get the punishment and I gave you $1 million. That's grace. Like, you deserve the punishment. You did the thing that deserved to be punished. But mercy is I didn't punish you, and grace is I didn't punish you and I gave you more. Like, it was like, why I didn't deserve this. And so marriages and stuff like that, you have to give people grace, especially if you're dating and you think that this is a person who you think you could do something with, like checking the boxes thing. Like, I get it. It's a way to make an easy decision and stuff like that, but it's not the end all be all. So I'd like to just put that out there too, because I think that gets missing in the whole Twitter talk, which I think is fun and stuff like that. But if you're making all your decisions around that, like, do it around this conversation like me and you were having. Like, there's more to it than just that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just like we've kind of touched on with profession, doesn't tell the whole story. Politics don't tell the whole story. Being a virgin or religion doesn't tell the whole story. Like, you really have to get in on that values level and see the behaviors, like see how you're treated in person. How does a real-time interaction work? And so someone can say whatever they want about themselves. They can put whatever label they want on themselves. And I just had a tweet, I think today, they're just not accurate. Like, don't use somebody's political affiliation or religious affiliation to make your judgment on whether they're going to be a good partner or not. You can only judge by actually being, physically interacting together. Right. I think this is good ending point here, because I think we got cut off with technology, so I lost track here. But Leila, any last things before we wrap up this? This is actually be my last episode for this season, so you're my last one in. So any cool. Last words, or are you good? I think I'm good, but I'm happy to help anybody who wants to get in touch with me if this all rings bells for you. For sure. She is Leila Tomasone. You can find her on Twitter at LimitlessLeila, and you can also find her on her website. It's also limitlessleila.car.co. She is blissfully remarried at 40 and help you find the one and be treated right. Leila, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks so much for having me, Joel. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, yeah.